Good morning, friends. Welcome back to the Mindful Classroom, episode 13. Today we are going to take a look at a poem. I've been playing with a lot of poetry lately in my life, something I forgot for a little while when I stepped away from the classroom. In the classroom, I would have my opportunities to teach poems, bring in my favorites, learn some new ones, and I think it's a literary art form that is worth revisiting. It really prompts thought. It coincides nicely with meditation. So we'll look at a quick poem today, and then from there we are going to look at a little parable, and finally I'm going to end with a wonderful meditation that I learned about from Brach. It is a rain meditation, RAIN, and I will go through that. And hopefully that'll be a great experience for everybody. We'll have a chance to really reflect on ourselves and where we are and kind of come together. I apologize, I delayed a little bit, and last week I dropped the podcast on Friday. I had a few things coming up, so I hope that won't happen again. So we'll do the meditation today, and then I will bring back the 5 a.m. club and one of the books that I've read on Ikigai, which I have been exploring with all of you if you've tuned into any of my morning ice plunges. For about the past 6 days, I've been looking every day at a principle of Ikigai, and kind of then I'll put it all together on Friday when we talk about that. So the first thing I would like to do, especially since it is so bright out and I just got back from a long walk, is explore a poem by Mary Oliver, and the poem is called The Sun, something we wonderfully get to see right now. Have you ever seen anything in your life more wonderful than the way the sun, every evening relaxed and easy, floats toward the horizon and into the clouds or the hills or the rumpled seas and is gone? And how it slides again out of the blackness every morning on the other side of the world like a red flower, streaming upward on its heavenly oils, say on a morning in early summer, at its perfect imperial distance. And have you ever felt for anything such wild love? Do you think there is anywhere in the language a word billowing enough for the pleasure that fills you as the sun reaches out, as it warms you? As you stand there empty-handed, or have you turned from this world? Or have you too gone crazy for power, for things? Mary Oliver's The Sun. I love Mary Oliver. I think it's my enjoyment of nature and how often she brings nature into her poetry, and just that idea of the sun and that reminder in our lives that everything has its season and its time, and we can watch the sun come up in the morning and we know the sun is going to set at night, but like everything else, it's going to come back the next morning, and it's that reminder. And I hope that each and every one of you has an opportunity to experience that awe of the sun, and that sense of just stopping and really taking in a sunrise and taking that deep breath and enjoying that sun coming up over the horizon and that new day, or like a day like today where you get to step outside and just feel the warmth of the sun. So even though it's cold out, that warmth of the sun that just heats us up and gives us that chance to just feel life around us. So I do like that, and I like, especially too, when it comes in the end, we go from that sun and how it impacts us and how we feel until we go crazy for the power of things, and sometimes then lose that sense of awe at all the simple things that exist in the world, and how we can let them go. That childlike wonder. I think that's one of the reasons that I like Mary Oliver's poetry so much, is she captures that wonder we've always had as children that when we get older we forget about and we sometimes lose. And it's sad that we can let go of something so spectacular. So, whenever you listen to this, I'll give you a challenge, and I'll take the same challenge. We'll call it the Mary Oliver Challenge. Let's look at the world. Let's go out and take a look at the world with fresh eyes. Let's try to not look upon things like we've always seen them, but look upon them in the splendid and the grandeur that nature holds. Can we take that chance to, if you're an early person, get up and watch the sunrise. There's nothing in the world like getting the first thing in the morning, and it's proven. It helps us psychologically and mentally and spiritually to the first thing we do when we get up in the morning, unless you get up before the sun, is to go out and experience sunlight on you, to experience that sunrise. It's one of the reasons that I like my morning walks. Scout, my dog, and I, we get to watch the sunrise on our return trip during the morning walk. It's one of the reasons that I endure or put up with my cold plunges, because I get to be out there feeling the sun beat down. So even though I may be uncomfortable, I experience that sunlight coming onto me right away in the morning, which is an absolutely splendid thing. And we're going to come back. Hopefully, this lesson falls in a way that we see it go full circle. So we're going to come back to that cyclical nature of the sunrise in a little bit. And I will also put a link in the show notes. So I don't know if you watch this on YouTube or you listen to this on Spotify, but either way, I will put a link to the Mary Oliver poem. And in fact, I'll put a link to the various different things that we go through today. So the next component is really a lesson that tied into me in the classroom. So I want to share a quick parable. And this is the parable of the river. And it's our lives so often that we... Well, let me share the parable and then we'll talk about it. One day, a group of villagers was working in the fields by a river. Suddenly, someone noticed a baby floating downstream. A woman rushed out and rescued the baby and brought it to shore and cared for it. And during the next several days, more babies were found floating downstream, and the villagers rescued them as well. But before long, there was a steady stream of babies floating downstream. Soon the whole village was involved in the many tasks of rescue work, pulling these poor children out of the stream, ensuring that they were properly fed, clothed, housed, and integrating them into the life of the village. And while not all the babies, now were very numerous, could be saved, the villagers felt that they were doing well to save as many as they did. Before long, however, the village became exhausted with all this rescue work. Some villagers suggested that they go upstream to discover how these babies were getting into the river in the first place. Had a mysterious illness stricken these poor children? Had the shoreline been made unsafe by an earthquake? Was some hateful person throwing them in deliberately? Was even more of an exhausted village upstream abandoning them out of hopelessness? Well, a huge controversy erupted in the village, and one group argued that every possible hand was needed to save the babies since they were barely keeping up with their current flow. The other group argued that if they found out how the babies were getting into the water further upstream, they could repair that situation up there, and then they would save all the babies and eliminate the need for these costly rescue operations downstream. Don't you see, cried some. If we find out how they're getting in the river, we can stop the problem and no babies will drown. By going upstream, we can eliminate the cause of the problem. But it's too risky, said the village elders, and it might fail. It's not for us to change the system. And besides, how would we occupy ourselves if we no longer had to do this? And I've come back to this story so many times in my life because how often are we rescuing those babies from the stream and succeeding sometimes and failing others, instead of going back and looking at what's leading these babies to get into the water, or what's leading these students to not care about education, or what's leading these people from leaving their country trying to come to this country, or, and I could go on and on and on. But so often, and I found this for 31 years in education, we treat the symptom and ignore the problem. I know I've been very struck and very influenced educationally by Michael McKnight and his work with social and emotional learning. And one of the things that has really always stayed with me is that misbehavior isn't done for its own sake. That if you really look at where the behavior is coming from, oftentimes it's rooted, always it's rooted in some form of trauma that child is trying to work through. Another great mind, Gabor Mate, has done incredible work with addiction. And across the board, he looks at the root of addiction being some type of childhood trauma, some trauma that's not been worked through. So the addiction's that form of escape. And then in our own lives, when we look at lashing out at people, or when we look at the emotions that we're going through, we often look at what emotion is there right now, right at this moment. But we never take the time to dig inside and really look at what's the root of that emotion? What's causing me to feel this way, to act this way? Why did I blurt this out? And that, to me, is this parable in a nutshell. We need to go upstream. And that's going upstream with ourselves. That's going upstream and finding out, where is this emotion, where's this feeling in me coming from? For most of my life in education, that's going upstream in education. If something's not working, why isn't it working? It's we have a tendency, I see it in education, we have a tendency to blame the kids, saying, oh, kids aren't what they used to be, you're this, that, and the other. And the truth is, well, if kids have changed, then we need to change to meet them where they are and get them where we want them to be, instead of just constantly complaining about where these changes have come from. So that leads us today into the meditation that I want to look at. And as we go through it, I will kind of describe it. And then in the end, I will also show you a great resource if you want to dig a little further. But RAIN is as Tara Brach says it is a practice of radical compassion. And that compassion is with ourselves. Probably the person that most of us are least compassionate with in our lives. We tend to be way tougher on ourselves. That's when you listen to your inner voice. That's asking yourself that question, that if I was talking to my best friend, would I talk to my best friend the way I talk to myself? And almost across the board, that's a no answer. We tend to be impatient with ourselves and critical of ourselves and really hard on ourselves. And please don't think that means you don't push yourself. I push myself in things that I do to be better, to improve. But there's an aspect of where we also have to understand when things don't work for us. So the acronym RAIN is an easy to remember tool. That's kind of why it sticks in so nicely. The R of RAIN is to recognize what's going on. The A, and this is hard sometimes, is to allow the experience to just be there as it is. We have a tendency to think when there's a bad feeling, we need to push people past that bad feeling instead of allowing them to feel that feeling, to feel that. Whether it's sorrow, we're sad about something. We can't ignore that sorrow. I think many of us, especially by the time you're in your 50s, realize that the system of just pushing everything down and ignoring it doesn't work. You don't heal, you don't deal with it, and in fact, it often makes you miserable. And if you're miserable, then everyone around you can be miserable. Miserable. So sometimes you have to allow things to be and understand they're not going to last forever. When people go through grief, we have to experience that grief. It's part of growth. It's part of what we go through. Um, Even anger. It's okay to feel angry. Maybe it's not okay to lash out with anger the way we do, but it is justified to feel anger at situations. Once you allow that experience to be, the eye of rain is to investigate, and to investigate it with interest and care, to really look at what I feel and then why do I feel it? Where is it coming from? And like an onion, sometimes when you peel a few layers, you find deep underneath that real cause might be something very different. Maybe the way someone's acted around you reminds you of something that's happened to you in the past. And then the last part of it, and this one varies depending on who you listen to in Rain. So Tara Brach has used the N as nurture. So nurture it with self-compassion, accepting that it's there. I've heard other Buddhist meditations use the word non-attachment to realize that we aren't our feelings. We feel our feelings, but we aren't our feelings. Like, for instance, me saying, I am angry, or I'm mad, or I'm pissed off. Well, that's not what I am. I feel angry, but when I say I feel angry, I realize that that anger will dissipate and will go away. So, if you are comfortable right now, otherwise, you may want to pause this and listen to this part. We're going to do a guided meditation when you get home or when you're somewhere that you feel comfortable sitting by yourself. But if you're with me now and you feel comfortable now, get into a comfortable position so you can sit up straight. Feet planted firmly on the ground. If you have a cushion and you want to sit cross-legged or you want to kneel, whatever works for you. I don't think it's a good one to lie down for this, because if you relax too much, you may not go through the process and the investigation and fall asleep. So sitting up in a very alert position, but a comfortable position. And we're going to start by taking a deep breath in. And then as you let that breath out, let your body just relax and sink into this moment. You can close your eyes if you're comfortable with your eyes closed. If having your eyes closed is uncomfortable, just pick a spot about a foot in front of you on the floor and soften your gaze. Take another deep breath in. As you do that, you can straighten your spine. And then as you let that breath out, let your shoulders drop. Let your face relax. And then we'll take one more deep breath in. And this time, as you let that breath out, let your whole body relax. Your hands, feel if they're clenched, your teeth. Even your eyes, if they're closed, don't have them closed. Just close them loosely so you can feel the muscles kind of coming down. And now you can let your breathing return to normal. So now for just about a minute, we're just going to sit with our breath. Notice the in-breath and the out-breath wherever you feel it, your stomach, your chest, or under your nose. Now, as we follow our breath, we're going to look at the first component, the R, recognizing what's going on. And what that means is just consciously acknowledging in any given moment, right now, what it is that you're thinking or what you're feeling, or even recognizing any behaviors that you've been doing that are affecting you. And this can be done just with a very quiet whisper in your head, a noting exercise. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling excited. Feeling nervous, whatever it may be. Just explore right now what you're feeling or thinking or how you've been acting. And as you explore, the key to this is do not judge. Just recognize what you're feeling, thinking, and sit with it for a moment. Once you recognize those thoughts, that brings you to the A. Allow that experience to just be there as it is. That's where the non-judgmental comes in. Allowing means you don't try to fix it or avoid it. You just sit with this feeling. You might recognize fear or sorrow and allow it by mentally whispering to yourself, "It's okay. This belongs here." Or something as simple as yes. But allowing creates the pause that makes it possible to deepen your attention. And then you transition to the I of rain. Investigate with interest and care. This is where you draw on your natural curiosity, that desire to know the truth. And now you direct more focused attention to your present experience. While you're sitting with this feeling you've discovered, you may want to ask yourself, what most wants attention? How am I experiencing this in my body? Do I feel it in my neck, in my stomach, in my hands? What is it I believe? Have I convinced myself that I'll always feel this way? And then really, what does this thought or emotion need from me the most? Whatever inquiry you're following, your investigation will be most transformational if you step away from conceptualizing and bring your primary attention to that felt sense in your body. And then that last part, the N, nurture with self compassion. If you tune into yourself, you'll find self compassion naturally begins to arise in those moments when you recognize your suffering. And then it comes into fullness if you intentionally nurture your inner life with self care. To do this, try to sense what the wounded, frightened, or hurting place inside you most needs. And when you do, offer some gesture of active care that might address this need. Do you need reassurance? A message of forgiveness? Of companionship? Or of love? And at this point, experiment to see what gesture of kindness leads to comfort or opening your heart. Maybe it's just a slight mental whisper. I'm here with you. I'm sorry and I love you. I'm listening. It's not your fault. I forgive you. Or trust in your goodness. And while you say that, many people find it really helps to gently place your hand on your heart, or to, if you're good with a visual, to envision yourself being bathed in a bright and healing light. And if you have a hard time visualizing this for yourself because you're still being really hard on yourself, you can picture a loved one or a pet or a spiritual figure and imagine that being or person's love and wisdom flowing into you. And we're going to sit with this for just another minute. you're going to hear a bell ring 3 times. And as it does, slowly open your eyes, but hold on to these feelings that you've just cultivated during this rain activity. And what's nice is when rain is over, it's important to notice the quality of your own presence. And as you have that realization, to sit in that wakeful and tender space of awareness that you just brought with yourself. It may take some practice, and sometimes it's hard to be gentle with ourselves, and it's hard to be forgiving of ourselves. We tend to hold on to that trauma and grief and frustration and anger the deepest. But like the story, like the parable of the children in the river, rain is a way for us to go up the river and find out what's causing what we feel right now. Why is it happening? And really coming to terms with solving it so we can stop this reacting to emotion and just losing control of where we are. It also reminded me, and which why I wanted to look at the poem by Mary Oliver, The Sun. Because the one thing about our emotions is, and rain shows us that, they're like a cloud. They appear, and then pretty soon they disappear. They're like the sun. They rise one day, and then they go away, and a new emotion comes the next day. The nice thing about that is, if we are working and doing the work to heal ourselves, we have a chance to see incredible progress get made. And the nice thing about it is, it may not happen today or tomorrow, but if you just do the work a little bit a day, it's amazing where you could be in 3 months or 6 months or a year. It means we have to do the work. And that's coming back to really, instead of ignoring ourselves and ignoring what's coming through, facing it head on and investigating it. There we have it. I will put a link to Radical Compassion. If you like the rain exercise or want to see the rain exercise go a little bit more, Tara Brach's book, Radical Compassion, Learning to Love Yourself and Your World with the Practice of Rain, is an absolutely amazing resource. I was lucky enough to be a student of Tara Brach and Jack Kornfield, and I'll bring some of his work to here as well. They greatly influenced my meditation practice, and they have been amazing guides in my teaching of mindfulness. So, with that said, it's been wonderful sitting here with you for this last half hour or so. I look forward to seeing you on Friday when, as I said, I will talk about the 5 a.m. Club, which I'm just finishing up. I absolutely love that book. And I will talk to you about a book on Ikigai and ways that we can live a more fulfilled, better, and if we do things right, maybe even a longer life. Take care. Thank you for joining me. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for stopping in the Mindful Classroom.